Okay, so this is a quick check-in since I am off at a teacher retreat today to teach you guys about amendments and laws. So this is not something that you need to know for the quiz that's coming up this week. It isn't something that's going to be assessed this unit. We will be talking about it later on this year, but it fits really well because it's election day, and right now, as I'm talking to you, people are voting on amendments right outside of my room in the city gym and all over the state of Minnesota. So I want you to understand these. In a moment, your teacher's going to pause this, and I want you guys to take about 30 seconds and talk at your table about what you think the difference between an amendment and a law is. All right, so go ahead. Okay, welcome back. And now what we're going to do is talk about these amendments and laws. And it fits well because, like I said, people are voting on this right now, and you guys have seen plenty of signs and commercials about the marriage amendment and the voter ID amendment. You've seen plenty of these vote no, vote yes signs everywhere. And that's why it's significant. That's why we're talking about it right now. So what is an amendment? I want you to imagine somebody's arm in a cast. And we would oftentimes say that their arm is mending. And what that means is that it's getting better. It's improving. It's fixing. So that is basically what we're talking about when we talk about an amendment. An amendment is a change to our Constitution that mends it, that makes it better. The Bill of Rights, which is the first 10 amendments of our national Constitution, made our Constitution better and added freedoms like freedom of speech, freedom to petition, right to privacy, right to an attorney, and many other things that we'll talk about later this year. But those are all changes to our Constitution that make it better. What is a Constitution? You should understand this. It's basically the rule book that our government and citizens must play by. It's the most supreme thing in our government, and government officials and citizens and judges, no one can do anything that goes against the Constitution. Like I said, it's our rule book. So understanding that an amendment is a change to that rule book. There are national and state constitutions in the United States because we have federalism where national and state governments divide up the laws. So for instance, each of these, we have a national constitution that applies to every state, and we have a state of Minnesota constitution. Each of these can be amended. The national constitution has been amended 27 times in our history, and our Minnesota Constitution has been amended 119 times in our history. So if you look at those numbers, you might be able to hypothesize that it's easier to amend the Minnesota Constitution because it's been amended so many more times. And that's what we're going to look at right now, and look at how, in fact, the Constitution is amended or changed. So if we look at the way that our national Constitution is changed, it starts with a proposal in Congress where 2/3 of both the House and the Senate must say, yeah, this is a good idea. And then they pass it on to the states. And 3/4 or 75% of the states must say, yeah, this is a good idea. So this is basically, we could say, when the people are voting on this amendment and deciding if it's a good idea. I said we have 27 amendments. We've used this process 26 times. There's one other way that it can happen, but we're not going to get into that right now. So just understand that our national amendments happen when 2/3 of the House say yes, that it's a good idea, and then 3/4 of the states. In Minnesota, it's different, and as we said earlier, it's actually easier. An amendment is started with a proposal in Minnesota here in St. Paul at our Capitol building, but instead of 2/3, only a majority of both houses have to say it's a good idea, so just over 50%. If they've said that, then it's passed on to the people of Minnesota, and a majority of the people must vote and approve this amendment, which is where we're at today, and that's what's taking place. Again, this has happened 119 times. So amendments are significantly easier to add in Minnesota than they are in the national government. And because they're easier to add, they're also easier to take away. But interestingly enough, of the 119 amendments in the Minnesota Constitution, none of them have ever been repealed. Of the 27 national amendments that we have in our Constitution, only one has been repealed or taken away. So that's kind of what an amendment is. Now if we're going to look at what a law is, I'll use this analogy. Imagine that an amendment is this umbrella, and all the rain that you see coming down around the umbrella would be all the harmful things that government could do to people, like restricting speech, taking away their property, putting them in jail for no good reason. So amendments are the umbrella that are designed to protect people from those. And once an amendment is written or is part of our Constitution, then laws, which are the specific things, must fit within amendments or underneath the umbrella. For instance, no law can take away someone's freedom of speech. If it did, it would violate our Constitution because it would violate the First Amendment. So amendments are certainly more important and more powerful than laws as we move forward and talk about them. If you look at how a law gets passed, it starts much the same on our national level. It's proposed by Congress, but instead of 2/3 of Congress approving it, only a majority, just above 50%, must say, yeah, that's a good idea. And then instead of passing it on to the people, it's passed on to our president, Barack Obama, and the executive approves it and says, yes, this is good, and now we have a law. And this is used all the time. At our state level, it's again approved, or proposed, I should say, by a majority of both the House and the Senate in St. Paul, and it's passed on to our executive, which is Mark Dayton, our governor. And again, this is used all the time. So laws are passed often, and they're much easier to pass than amendments. They're also easier to change. For instance, anytime a judge decides that a law is bad or is unconstitutional, they can come in and they can strike it down and say, no, that doesn't work. For instance, we already have a law in Minnesota that bans gay marriage. However, people that are supporting the marriage amendment don't just want a law that bans gay marriage. They want it to be an amendment, because if it's an amendment, judges cannot strike it down because it is part of the Constitution. For instance, like I said earlier, there's one amendment that's been repealed in the United States, which is or was prohibition, which banned alcohol. Now, anyone that you ask today would say that people have the right to consume alcohol if they're of age and doing it responsibly. However, because citizens voted on it, alcohol was banned in the United States, and no judges could do anything about that because it was an amendment. And just like that, what I said here, that if the amendments to ban gay marriage or to require voter ID are passed in Minnesota today by a majority of the citizens, again, judges won't be able to do anything about them. The only way that they will go away is if citizens pass another amendment repealing them. So that's why amendments are significant, and that's why the gay marriage and voter ID amendments have been so controversial over these last few months, and why it's so intriguing to see what the results will be tomorrow. So in the rest of this lesson, you guys are going to watch 2 videos that will explain the details behind both amendments, and then you're going to get a chance to vote on them and many other things. I will tally those votes, and I'll show you guys in class on Thursday how the students of Southview voted on these issues, and you can see how it compares to the real election. So please make sure you watch the election tonight when you get time, and we will be talking about it more in class. All right, I hope you have a good class.